have a special guest, the creative and kind Lexi Wooten. I know that you'll be blessed by her testimony and how God has taught her where pornography set her up for failure in relationships. And I'm so excited to introduce her to you.
Welcome to the Sifted Wheat Podcast with Leslie Lamb, a counselor by profession, a minister of truth, and a lover of people. This is a safe place where she sets a path for others to learn how to move through hard seasons with confidence and grace, encouraging your faith, empowering your choices, and challenging your perceptions through the Word, the wisdom from years of counseling others, and her own experience of being sifted. Here's Leslie.
I am so excited to introduce Lexi to our Sifted Wheat podcast friends. And so I wanted to invite you on here because I believe that given where we've been and the things that we've been talking about, you have a lot to share in that space. And I love your heart. I love the way that you sit with the Lord. I love seeing where you yourself have grown. And a lot of times we take for granted because we see people in such a peaceful, joyful state, we just kind of assume they've lived a charmed life or that they haven't gone through stuff. And that is a false perception. Yeah. And so I just want you to share your story. But first, I would love for you to just introduce yourself, tell people who you are, what you do, and what you're passionate about, and really how you got connected to Sifted Wheat.
Perfect. Okay, so hello, my name is Lexi. I would say the first thing that comes to mind is people. So always been passionate about people, always have cared about people, and been very people-oriented and extrovert. I like people. So I think that's what we'll say we're passionate about. Okay, so how did I find Sifted Wheat? Oh, I've been here championing for I don't know how long, anxiously waiting for Sifted Wheat to just be birthed because you've given me so many words of wisdom and that have changed the way my brain functioned. So I'm like, oh, people need to hear this. And here we are. So been here, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah. And it's true. You really were the first person to say, like, hey, have you thought about a podcast? Like, you should do a podcast. And then crazy stuff started happening. And then here we are. So I love that. So, sexuality is a really tough topic. And I understand that. And it's a place where many, many people have been sifted, men and women across the board. You're bravely joining in this conversation. And so what do you want us to know about your story?
So, one, thanks for asking. And I think it's important to know that it's not been lovely. So it's not happy-go-lucky, it's not that type of story. So I come from a history of abuse, and I was molested as a child for a very long time. And that impacted my entire life. It's something that I see to this day. And so just having that be introduced and awakened to sexuality as a child, learning to cope with that, and so many areas, so many things are just impacted in your life. And the older I get, the more that I realize, oh, this is going to have a lifelong impact on the way that I interact with people, on the way that I interact with sexuality and learn about that and explore sexuality and all the things. It's impacted from a very young age, a very dark start.
And I think that's what people kind of don't understand. Even in our own stories, like we've experienced these things that have happened to us and we didn't realize how we were being impacted as children. We didn't realize that what we were thinking about the world and how we were encountering people and relationships was singular to us. We just assumed, oh, everybody has these concerns. Everybody's been touched like this. Everybody. But at the same time, there's this shame that says, you're the only one. And it's this weird tension of my brain can't comprehend that people might not understand what has happened to me, while at the same time, shame tells me that there's something wrong with me. In the moment, you don't realize how it's impacted you. And then as an adult, how it impacts you. So pornography was a part of your story too. And where do you see that having an impact on your adult life?
Okay, great question. I was first introduced to porn at 9. Actually, probably younger than that, but I first remember at 9 years old and remember seeing this and knowing that what I'm seeing feels wrong, feels like, one, I have to hide. And this should be a secret. This shouldn't be, if you get caught, you're in trouble. Then 2, being so, I guess, just curious, naturally curious of like, what's happening? Because I didn't understand what I was watching, what I was seeing at all. And 9 was when the first introduction came around. But it wasn't until my teen years where it was something that I literally remember the day. It's crazy that I'd first been exposed to porn at 9 years old, but like didn't think anything of it since then. Spoiler alert, we did get caught. So me and my cousins had found something that we shouldn't have found, something we shouldn't have watched. And my grandma came and found us. We all got spankings, whatever.
That's probably why you remember it.
Right, probably why I remember it. I just remember at 13 years old, like, I don't know, it just came back that, oh, you remember that one time? What was that? You should go look and see if you can find some more. And so I went to the source, and lo and behold, here's a world opened up. Had no clue, like, what the door that was opening. I remember watching and just, you don't really know what's kind of going on. It's just weird. I don't have words for this at that point in time. And then that slowly opening the door to an addiction, to porn that literally was at least 10, 12 years long of like, this has gripped my soul. This is something no one knows is going on. It's hidden. I'm not talking about it. I remember a few times where I'm like, okay, I want to talk to someone about this. I know that this feels wrong. I know that I'd gotten into church at 14, so I'd started to learn that like, oh yeah, these aren't things that honor the Lord, honor my body, whatever, but just never open up about it.
Yeah.
Was quiet. Anytime people would preach about it, they would always talk about men. So very much felt shame and singular, that like, oh, I must be the only girl struggling with this because y'all are sure talking about how the men struggle, but you're not talking about how the women struggle. And so I felt shame and embarrassment and I don't know, just isolated in that struggle. So yeah, it was a door opened and then the enemy got a foothold and literally kept me captive for a long time. And it wasn't until not that long ago, one of those years, it was COVID, so it had to be 2020.
Isn't that funny that that's our timeline marker?
Yes.
Like, it was either before or after 2020.
So it was.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your story, but it's wild to me. Yes.
That I confessed for the very first time. This is something I'm struggling with. And again, another concrete memory, never going to forget that day. So I confessed and prayed and wept and walked away from that moment thinking, oh, I'm done with this. And we were done for like 6 months, and then here we are still wrestling with this thing. So that's just a kind of bird's eye view of what that's looked like, what that's been a fight of purity and to restore the things that were exposed, open, and just realign with what God intended.
Yeah. And I think because it is a sexual entertainment activity, then I think a lot of people will, that's the way that they go, right? Shame, perversity, sexualized. But, there was something, I truly believe that when you had that moment of repentance, it was sincere. But part of addiction is that dopamine, right? Yeah. And that surge that then the brain starts feeding us information. Instead of us just feeding our brain information, it starts to feed us information about what we need. And the problem with pornography is invariably it's going to lead to masturbation. And masturbation is going to double down on that dopamine hit. And so a lot of times we think people are seeking pornography because they need a sexual outlet. But very often it's because they need an intimacy outlet and they don't know how to engage true intimacy. And so they found this pseudo means of seeing people engage that looks intimate, right? It looks giving, but it's obviously very oppressive, very aggressive. And the deeper you go down that hole, the more oppressive and aggressive it gets, the younger the players get, and so it really is kind of like this deep, dark web into just complete depravity. But the person who engages it is not always depraved. And I think that we really need to sit with that, because if we believe I'm a monster, I'm a horrible person because I engage pornography, it's just going to drive us deeper and deeper into that shame cave. But like you being honest and saying, okay, I'm dealing with this, I need to confess it, and I need to bring it before someone who can hold me accountable. That's the power of allowing our shame to be broken off. But then also there's that negative, who do you share it with? And I've seen that too, like where people share it and they share it with someone who's also struggling. And instead of holding one another accountable, they almost teach one another to manage the addiction. And so did you ever run into that where you were attempting to find accountability, but because of the pull, it ended up being just managing one another's sin?
Most definitely. The first memory or thought that comes to mind was my college best friend. We were friends in high school and then really got close in college because we went to college together. So freshman year of college, I remember it was my guy best friend at the time. He had said something to me as a little side comment, and I responded truthfully about porn. And so he was like, what? And I'm like, I mean, you said it. I ain't gonna lie about it. No point lying. And so I just fessed up. And I just remember we would joke about it. But that was the first time that someone, I remember just feeling the heart palpitations of oh, you're about to say something that's true. And that feels shameful and don't you open your mouth, whatever. But no, I said it. But then from that point on, it was just a joke. You make jokes about it. We're not bettering each other. It's just oh, funny, haha, people do it, whatever. But no, life changing that. And then I didn't open up again about it until 5-6 years later. Yeah, I don't think anyone knew. He's the only person in my direct community that knew. And we would joke about it, even talk about it, just joke about it. Oh.
And that brings up a good point. Is it is such an everybody does it, right? What's the big deal? Everybody does it. It's almost like a coming of age. Oh, what? You haven't watched pornography? Then you haven't really matured, which is so horrible. But it is so ingrained in our culture. That's kind of the expectation. And if you haven't watched pornography, what's wrong with you? Everybody has experienced that at least once. Right. And so, like you said, it kind of becomes this cultural expectation, and then it just kind of becomes this cultural joke. Yeah. I mean, even if you watch comedy, they make a joke of it, somebody's caught in the bedroom and they're doing it and it's no big deal, or somebody's pretending to masturbate in front of someone and it's oh, it's no big deal. We laugh about it, but it really is destroying lives. It's destroying relationships. It's destroying marriages because it's setting an expectation for sexuality that is just really hard and unhealthy. And I was wondering, because pornography does kind of inform our ideas about relationship even, where have you seen that affect you?
I think there's been an unhealthy attraction to a specific type of man a very aggressive, very authoritative type. Very much so. Not a healthy, what I find attractive in men. One, there's a very specific type of men that I find attractive that can definitely be directly correlated to the type of porn that I would watch. So I find this very specific type of man attractive, but then also personality traits of a very authoritative, aggressive, I don't know. I think those words describe it the best of like, this is what I find attractive, but this is not healthy. This is not what masculinity in a healthy sense, in a holy sense, should look like. And so having to heal those places in my heart that like, you find this attractive, because undoing that in adulthood is really interesting. It's really hard. Trying to not be attracted to toxic men is a fight for my life. Telling yourself, we do not find this attractive. We do not find men that don't want us attractive.
Man, those are powerful. It's a fight for my life. Like, because it literally is. And I love that you're bringing that out, because that's something that we don't talk about, you know, but it informed an arousal and a sensuality around a type of person that is going to not be good in real life. It's going to be abusive. It's going to be narcissistic. It's going to be controlling and manipulative and all of those things. And because my brain has created an arousal towards people like that through pornography, that's so good, Lexi, that you're talking about that, because it's so important. Because, you know, so many young girls are in this trap. And then they wonder, like, why, you know, honestly, so many of them are moving into dominatrix type relationships. And then, okay, yeah, that's fun, quote unquote, sexually. But then you get in a relationship, and then that relationship is oppressive, and you feel like a slave, and you feel like you need to do that. And then it just feeds this, I know this isn't right. I feel like I'm trapped. But at the same time, there's this sexual component that keeps drawing me back in to this kind of person. And I can't leave the relationship now, because that same person is going to make you feel like a piece of poop, because you're a part of it too, right? And you're never going to be able to feel confident enough to leave that situation. They're not going to let you feel confident enough. Yeah. And so I'm so glad that you're bringing that up, because I even talked about that in that porn-informed sexuality, or let's talk about sex was the episode. But the increase in abusive, narcissistic relationships, and it is directly correlated to our consumption of pornography. But you don't hear that in culture. But here you are, human being, flesh and blood, real life. And you're saying, this is a choice for my life, that I have to tell myself, no, this is not who you need. This is not what is attractive, because your brain is sending a different message.
Yeah. It's the hardest thing to undo. And I don't think I've realized until like recently, the last 6 months, of like, you have a type and it's not good. And there's lots of not good things about this. And I'm like, where does this come from? Let's explore this. And I'm like,
makes sense.
This makes sense. I think the Lord has revealed that. Yeah, these don't come from me. This wasn't me. This isn't healthy. Like, firstly, it's just not healthy. And then trying to get out of a relationship that was not good, and not being able to understand, like, why can I not, where's my self-control? Why can't I just not get out of this? Like, you know, why can't I just be done? And the back and forth and all just the cycles.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why can I not get out of the cycle? And finally getting out. And then the last 6 months have just been like, it's a roller coaster, you know? So like healing from that, and slowly but surely, so much is being revealed of like, a lot of this is what you've witnessed. You've been attracted to, been introduced to. This is how love should look like. This is what it should be. And then fighting my flesh and my spirit, knowing, like, my spirit knows, we don't want this. But my flesh being so like, I miss you. I crave the crazy. I want to fight.
Yeah.
And that's not healthy. That's not healthy.
It's not healthy that that's the pull, but it's so healthy that you are countering that pull. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of times people, and again, culturally, we have this belief that you just follow your passions, follow what your heart desires. And that's the danger of it, right? Your heart is desiring something that can put you, and not just you, generations, right? Because if you get in a relationship, chances of you getting pregnant are very high. Getting married, hopefully before the pregnancy, but that same person then becomes a parent. Yeah. And you have to co-parent. Say you divorce, right? Something happens, you're able to get out of that situation. But now you have children that are involved in that. And you have to figure out how to co-parent with someone who is narcissistic and controlling, which is absolutely no fun. And then it's not only your life choice, it becomes their life choice. Yeah. And that's the danger of just letting go of your inhibitions. God gave us brains. He gave us minds. He developed a prefrontal cortex, which, we call the wise leader, in order for us to think through things. And a lot of times people just don't think, they just do, right? This is just who I am. This is what I like. This is what I want. And they never stop to ask why. And I think your story is, I see it mirrored so often, right? Where sexuality was introduced at a young age and aggressively. And so then the pornography just kind of validates that. And then it becomes an understanding that then just guides your choices. Yeah. And you can look at any realm of sexuality, and generally that's going to be the path that has happened. But you being able to say, okay, I could want this and I could like this, but why? And what is better and why is that better? So I'm just so proud of you for just not letting that dictate your life, because it is a downward spiral and it will bring more pain and harm to you in the long run. So if you had an opportunity to speak to someone, which I'm sure you do, just because you're just such a dynamic person and you have, just shared and encouraged people in Christ for as long as I've known you. But if you had, maybe even young Lexi sitting across from you and she's in this struggle, what would you want her to know?
I would tell her to speak up. And to say something, because I remember being little and knowing that this isn't normal. This isn't something that's okay. This isn't something I'm okay with, but my voice being stolen and then being silenced when I did speak up. And so keep saying something, because someone's going to get it. Someone's going to listen, and someone's going to make that shift that you need. Someone's going to be the adult that you need them to be. So keep saying something. And it's not your fault. I think for so long I wrestled and believed that, one, I asked for it. And then two, the older I got, so when I'm 13 years old and this is happening, I'm complacent. I want this. That's the thought. That's the lies that I believe. So no, you were coping and you were surviving.
Yeah.
And so what you had to do to survive is not shameful, and you are not shamed. You had to survive.
That's what a lot of people don't understand, because that's kind of the pushback when people are honest about what has happened to them, in their childhood, and or even teenagers, sometimes even adults, any kind of sexual assault or sexual abuse. When the person might have the courage to say it, one of the first pushbacks is, well, why didn't you say something? If it really, and then it just becomes this question of if it's even real because you didn't say something, which to me is just so painful, and recognizing that's why people don't. Right. Because that voice inside their head tells them, you're going to get in trouble. Nobody's going to understand. Something's wrong with you. And that's on the side if it's just within you. But if this has been somebody who's older than you, someone who has power or influence or authority, then there's that other component of they're going to get mad at me. They're going to hurt me. Or they've threatened you saying, if you tell anyone, then you're going to get in trouble, or your family is going to be devastated, or, your parents are going to be so sad. These are the lies that precipitate and groom that type of sexual behavior. Yeah. And so your word of, I was surviving, because that's what you do, right? If you speak up and no one hears and it continues, then it has to continue in such a way that you feel like, okay, I'm doing this because if I don't do this, something worse is going to happen to me. And so I'm so glad that you brought that into the room, because it is a survival. And people don't understand that because they haven't been there and they don't know the mind games that are played for those of us who have been sexually abused or sexually molested. So when you think about your story, what is the most challenging part of your story?
Currently is healing.
Okay.
So
fair enough.
But I think I have two thoughts on this. So currently healing, we'll circle back around to that. Growing up, and I guess this is still technically healing, but like what that does to self-esteem and all the confusion that comes from that, and then the hurt and the resentment and bitterness and anger and rage and all those feelings never ever being able to express, and then now as an adult trying to deal with and come into touch with my emotions and being able to express myself. And so it's been everything. Like I think it's just everything but healing. Yeah. And so healing all the areas and realizing that there's still so much to heal, so much more deeper. Like, we healed a layer of things, but it's going deeper and further. And
that's good that you brought up emotions too, because you're right. In that state, you don't have the freedom to really express those emotions. And so you learn to suppress them, but they're going to surface somehow. And anger and rage is one of the ways that surfaces. And it becomes against people who weren't evolved. It's the innocent bystander. Like, you just hit that part of my heart that's wounded just right. And so now everything that I couldn't say to that person, everything that I couldn't do in that moment, I'm about to say and I'm about to do to you. So it's so true. And it is an ongoing process of healing. But I didn't mean to interrupt you. Keep going.
I think it's hard because one, I remember I didn't want to talk about this. So like it wasn't until a few years ago that I'd ever said this out loud. I think one of my friends had asked me one time, and then, for a lifetime I lied about it. That's just the rote response of no, that's not true. I learned to just start lying. I'm fine. Nothing ever happened to me. Yeah. So I lied about it on autopilot for forever. And so I remember the first time that someone asked me directly and that I couldn't respond. Like I was choked up and the person was pressing me for a response and I cried. So I couldn't even say anything. I'm like, what is happening? What is this? What is this experience? That's when I knew something was wrong. And I was like, we should go to therapy.
Good for you.
But being able to express, this is what happened. Yeah. And I remember the first time you asked me, how does it make you feel? And I was like, I don't know. And you wouldn't let me not put feeling words. Like you salved me and gave me tools to express my feelings. And life-changing, whoa, didn't know that was like, had no clue how to do that. And then now just as an adult, having to be responsible in that healing doesn't just happen. Like, there's lots of work. And so having to be like, I'm responsible, not for what happened to me, but for how I heal from it. And so I need to heal. And I don't want to carry this into a future marriage. I don't want to carry this for children to come. And just in my everyday life, I want to be healed. And I want to heal like fully. I just don't want this part of healing, all wanting and desiring all of it and then fighting for healing. Yeah. Because it's a fight. I just want to just numb out, you know, because I turn to masturbation for emotional overload. So when I don't want to feel anymore, that's what we turn to. When I'm super stressed, that's what we turn to. That we just turn off our brain. Yeah. That's a coping mechanism. Yes. So having to fight to not do that. Yeah. To work out your feelings in another way. Realizing you're not okay. And, you know, you've been checked out of your body for who knows how long. So, like, coming back in, self-regulating, disgusting. Not trying to lean on other people to, like, not feel the void, you know? Like, so not feel the silence with things and people and all the stuff. And healing. And it is hard. And it's an ongoing process. It really is. And I mean, I'm 49, you know, that was 42 years ago that I had my first experience. But here's the thing though with healing is it's progressive. It's not just an ongoing process, but it's a progressive process. In other words, the way that I'm healing at 49 is very different than how I was healing at 37, which I will tell you, I didn't really even start healing until I was in my 30s. So you're already ahead of me, you know, which is great. But then when you have children, you have to sit with, okay, I've forgiven the things that have happened to me when I was younger, but now there's this new rub, right? I don't want that to happen to my kids. And then there's this balance of not parenting them out of fear, which I'm going to make huge mistakes if I do that. You know, I'm going to be policing them. I'm going to be, you know, just overbearing and not allowing them to think for themselves. Versus parenting in faith, which is a guiding process, a discipling process where you bring it up, even if they don't want to hear it, and walk them through it instead of just fearing that they're doing it. And I think that, you know, that's a part of the process that you have yet to learn, you know, when you have children. But it's so powerful that if we take the things that have happened to us and we allow them to inform the people that are vulnerable around us with that same empowered space of healing, then they might not encounter some of the same things that we did. And that's kind of where healing is almost like paying it forward, right? Because I've healed from it and I recognize things that you might not recognize would be dangerous for you. But if you trust me, we can kind of navigate through this to get to a better side. So when you think about your own story, and they often say that it's our pain, our deepest pain that fuels our purpose. Where's this been true in your own story? How do you see your own pain fueling purpose? I would say really kind of true. Like in so many ways, I see how because of what happened and the way, like, my voice was stolen, how, like, now I got a degree in communication. And so, like, Lord, I don't think that's on accident. That, like, for so long I felt silenced. And then I'm studying and taking up the very opposite of that thing, communicating. And then, truthfully, how I approach people, like, I've learned so much of empathy and compassion and approaching people in that way. And then what I want to do next, hopefully a future career in therapy and walking people through that too, because it changed my life. And then I want others to just not sit and be still, whatever.
Maybe both.
Stuck.
Right? Stale, still, stuck.
That's it. Something. In what happened. In an incident. And in because for so long, that's what I was, just stuck. I remember being in college when I realized, oh, I should go to therapy and having flashbacks and all the things of like, I feel stuck in this thing. And I was 22 at the time. I shouldn't be stuck in this thing. This was my childhood, whatever. No, I was never equipped to walk through it. And that's not something that you can, I mean, yeah, maybe you can do it alone, but it wasn't something I could do alone.
Yeah.
So wanting freedom and fighting for freedom for others, because you need it too. I'm so pro therapy because, again, changed my life. And just, Lord willing, we'll do it.
I love that. A freedom fighter. That's not generally how we hear that, but it's so true. It's like once you've found your freedom and you have the ability to walk in it, there's nothing more that you want for your fellow human beings and neighbors in Christ is to just see them also find that freedom. And we can't do that without him. Like, you know, I can get free from certain mentalities or the way that I think things, or I can resolve them, or I could change them. But true freedom, where God just comes in, absolves you of the shame and of the guilt and sets your feet on a firm foundation. I love that scripture verse that says, he takes me out of the miry clay and sets my feet upon a rock. I love that because I know what it is to be in the miry clay. You know what it is to be in the miry clay. And so you being freedom fighter, and I would always say, like, I'm reaching back into the mire to pull people up, to set them on the same rock that he's placed me on. And so I love that you're taking this painful thing that's happened to you and this journey of healing, and you're allowing them to fuel your purpose. Yeah. And I think because of that, you're going to be a great counselor because you are empathetic. And that's another thing that people don't realize with the healing process. When you don't heal, you don't feel. And if you don't feel, then you don't have empathy for others. Yeah. You can feel bad for them. You can feel sorry for them, but you can't truly empathize because empathy by its nature is feeling what others feel. So if I can't feel it for myself, I sure as heck can't feel it for you. Right. And so you in this journey, you're going to be a great empathetic listener. You're going to be a great in the room, person to person counselor, instilling hope. And I think it's great. And I'm excited about this next journey that you're taking. And I want to just encourage you. You know, a lot of people ask why, but that's such a difficult question. And I don't know that you're ever going to find out why something happened specifically. But I tell people this all the time, and I probably have said it to you too. Why is not found in the past is found in the future.
That's good.
And it's not necessarily that God allowed that to happen to you. And I get into circles with Christians all the time over this because I don't believe that God's perfect will is done on earth as it is in heaven. Because why else would Jesus say, pray for his will to be done on earth? So I don't believe that he orchestrated your story to be molested or my story to be molested or any of the other things or to introduce you to He's not that kind of God. I don't believe in that. But I do think that this is the working things out for our good part of his love for us in our story. What the enemy intended for harm, he allows it to be used for good. That's the allowance that he has, is that this is going to be used for good. And so when we do that, when we turn back and say, okay, because people ask me all the time, do you wish that you didn't have that story? And I can honestly tell you, I don't wish that I did not have that story because of who I've become as a human being, my relationship with the Lord and where it is, and just what I get to do on a daily basis. If any measure of that changed, if that didn't happen to me, it's worth that happening to me to be where I am today. And not everybody can say that, but I do pray that people will get to the level of healing that they will be able to say that, because then the enemy can no longer hold you in resentment and bitterness and regret because you've been free from that.
Yeah, that's good.
So I'm just really excited how you're going to use and what your why is going to become because you're still forming that why. And I think it's beautiful. So outside of this really intense subject, is there anything that you would say to our friends that can strengthen them in their own journey of either breaking free from pornography or finding grace and healing from sexual activity or even masturbation? Like, what would you say to strengthen them?
I think what I've learned the most is to give yourself some grace. In that unlearning, undoing, all of that doesn't just happen once you say, oh, I'm done with this. Just kidding. It's going to be a journey. And so give yourself some grace. If you just gave up something yesterday and then the very next day are back where you were yesterday, give yourself some grace because you just gave it up yesterday. And if this has been a pattern of your behavior for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, that doesn't just go away. And find some real accountability, some safe spaces to share that, and then people to text. And I've learned that it's really not a battle you fight on your own. So that need for accountability is real. And maybe that's therapists, maybe that's some people who are gonna, hey brother, come over instead of staying at your house, or call me, we can talk about it. Let's go for a walk, something who will get you out of the pattern. And there's hope. So I think that too is that this isn't forever. This might be all consuming right now. It might be all consuming for the next 3 months, 3 years, but there's hope. And slow progress is still progress. And
I love that. Yes.
Because it's still progress. And we want to discount ourselves, discredit the work that's been done. You recognizing, oh, I'm about to lean into this pattern of behavior. It's progress when you didn't know that this is a pattern of behavior that I had as a coping mechanism.
Yes.
So like that's progress. And it's not perfect. And so put down perfection because you'll never live up to it. The only perfect one was Jesus. And so guess what? I'm not perfect. But give yourself some grace.
That's great. That is so good.
Yeah.
You have to, because God's giving you grace already. And that's part of what you said. You invite God into the process because you can't extend to yourself the measure of grace that God extends to you.
Right.
Like we have no idea how gracious and merciful he is.
No clue.
So yes, I love that. Hope and give yourself grace. Do what? Say
it's slow.
It's slow. It can be slow. But here's the thing. Like you said, it's taken you so many years to develop this. It's not going to change overnight. And I hear people say all the time, oh, I feel like I'm, 2 steps forward, 10 steps back. I don't believe that because you can't unknow certain information, right? And so you went 2 steps forward and then you went 2 steps to the side. And you're going to have to figure out your healing from 2 steps to the side. You didn't go all the way back. You can't go back. Once you start the healing process, you really can't go back. You're learning new things. You're experiencing new things. You're seeing things differently. Your perspective and your perception is shifting. You can't unknow those things. And so I think that that's so good is just have grace with yourself for the process. Know that it can be slow, but just because it's slow doesn't mean you're going backward. I just do want to say I'm so thankful for you just choosing to be vulnerable and coming into this space and sharing your story and how it's affected you. And I pray that someone is listening that finds themselves where you are. And I believe you've said something that will sit with them and will make a difference for their question of life and death. Okay, so outside of this, I'm going to just give us a lighter ending. I just pulled this out of the hat. If you had a theme song for your life, what would it be?
Okay, this is so random. So the song goes, It's Not Over, but it's an alt rock song from like the 2000s. Specifically the part of It's Not Over. So I'm not sure the context of the song, it's probably a love song. Who knows? It's not over. Just that lyric is what's in my head on repeat of It's not over.
I love that.
So life is not over. Your best days are not over. You haven't lived the best of them yet. Your dreams, your hopes for the future, all the things. It's not over.
Hey, that's a great theme song to have. Yeah, it just keeps you going, instilling that hope. It's not over, and there's so much more, and I'm excited to see where the Lord takes you in that. And so thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. I'm really pleased that you said yes. And I know that God's going to get the glory.